historically marginalized communities around the world. He's a globally astute, innovative, and result-focused educational consultant, parent-student right advocate, and international lecturer, where he has traveled to Nepal, Qatar, Mexico, Finland, India, and both mainland China and Hong Kong to educate, lecture, and learn about global educational ingenuity and its impact and relationship to the classroom. I've never read so many heavy words in the same introduction in one day. So without further delays, let us invite Dr. Garneir. Dr. Garneir has 12 to 15 minutes to give us his message.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So it might take longer than 12 to 15 minutes, but I'm not being timed, and I don't really care if you grade me down or not. I won't take that long, I promise. So I appreciate the introduction. Obviously, if you can see from my accent, I'm an American. You can see from my skin color, I'm an African American. And I'm honored to be here with you, and I'm honored to talk to you. I have no kidding. I've traveled around the world to learn and to teach and to really emphasize the importance of education to extremely, what I call, historically marginalized groups. In the United States of America, the education system is very much set up for white Americans, white men specifically. So when I look at people around this room, I don't see any white males at all. And with that, I'm going to give you a quick history of how I've come to be where I am today. My father grew up in Los Angeles, California, in a place called Inglewood. And I'm sure you guys have all heard of Inglewood. If you don't, Dre, Inglewood, up to no good,
Absolutely.
Inglewood in the hood, all those things that go along with it. And my father was a Crip. So back in the days, there were two major gangs, the Crips and the Bloods. He was a Crip, again, grew up in Los Angeles, California, and in about 1973, when he was 16 years old, he got himself in a bit of trouble. The gun as a Crip, and decided that he was going to take that gun and walk up to a public bus and tell the bus driver to get off the bus so he can take that bus and steal it so he can pick up his Crip buddies, his friends, and go fight the Bloods. This is a true story. So he held that bus driver up, told him to get off the bus. He held them up, and he took that bus and he went over, and they had a fight. Needless to say, he got himself in trouble. He got himself arrested. And the judge at the time gave him two options as a 16-year-old young man. Either you go to jail or you go to the military. At that time in the 70s was the Vietnam War. So his challenge, his options were either you go to jail or potentially you lose your life. Potentially. He came back unscathed. Fortunately. And because of his time in the service and his service to the United States of America military, he was able to use a thing called the GI Bill. And the GI Bill is something that allows you, if you serve in the military as an American, you get to go to college for free. So he used that at Purdue University, and he got a degree in engineering. And I'm a huge proponent, and I tell my students all the time, my young people that I'm around all the time, that I believe greatly in restorative justice. Restorative justice is a thing that looks at our young people and says, you made a mistake, but I still believe in you. And the judge gave him restorative justice. And because of that, I myself am a product of restorative justice. If it wasn't for the restorative justice that was imparted on my father, I wouldn't be here today in Kathmandu talking to you. From there, my father moved us to a very white, very affluent community in San Diego, California, which is about 130, 140 kilometers south of Los Angeles, California. So growing up with a bunch of white people in a very wealthy community, we weren't wealthy at ourselves, but my father, he felt that it was extremely important for us to get the education. And I exactly what code switching is. Code switching is the thing where when we are important people in my life, the wealthy white people, I knew how to walk, talk, act that way. And then when I went back to my parents' Los Angeles, I would code switch back to being that black, that African American. What's up, homies? Hey! We all code switch. When we're certain people, we talk a certain way, we act a certain way, and then when we're our homies off the block, we also act a certain way and also talk a certain way. Am I correct?
Yes.
So with that, I learned how to do it very, 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 very well. I'm going to fast forward here a little bit. I was fortunate enough to understand how things worked and how to, I call it a chameleon, where I can change my colors and code switch appropriately. And I played in college. American football is what got me to college. You guys look at these giant biceps, this big chest, and you're wondering, wow, how did that happen? It wasn't by chance. It was by a lot of work, a lot of effort. And I had the opportunity to travel around the country of America to play American football, to places like Notre Dame, to places like Stanford and USC. And I had the opportunity to play in front of my largest crowd, 110,000 people at a game. As a 18, 19, 20-year-old young man, wow. You see this crowd are just amazing. And you're thinking, look at this opportunity that I had. Again, the opportunity came because my father was afforded restorative justice that allowed me to have this opportunity at the University of Hawaii. That's where I got my bachelor's degree in English and political science. I thought, hey, guess what? I'm going to be a professional American football player. I went to the San Francisco 49ers, they cut me. To the San Diego Chargers, they cut me. I went to the New Orleans Saints, they cut me. And I was flummoxed. And I had to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. I decided, okay, I guess I'm going to apply to law school. So I started the application, but in 2001, something happened that affected the entire world. It affected you. Does anyone know what that was? 9/11. 9/11, 2 jets crashed into the Twin Towers. Killed thousands of people. The inability to get visas from around the world were put to a halt. Our ability to fly where we wanted to fly was put to a halt. Our ability to communicate the way we wanted to communicate, our speculation on our neighbors was enhanced. And when I mean our neighbors around the world, different countries, was enhanced. And we thought everybody were our enemies. So I decided, as an American, I want to serve my country. And in the United States military, there are 4 branches of service. People know about the Army, they know about the Navy, they know about the Air Force, but there's the 4th branch, and it's one of the most special branches of all. It's the United States Marine Corps. Well, we do a little bit of it all. We fly, we are on the ground, we're on the sea, we do it all. and I wanted greatly to be a Marine. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to my OSO, my officer selection officer, and I'm going to ask him, hey, I want to be a Marine. I want to serve my country because of this tragedy that transpired on 9/11. He told me in my own ignorance, because I didn't even know the depths of the Marine Corps. I said, hey, I have a bachelor's degree. I can be an officer. I thought all Marines went out and we shot guns and we just blew things up and everyone would follow me and we would just go, excuse my mouth, kick the ass of the bad people that decided to hurt us. He told me, hey, there are... So we have flight contracts. And in my life, I didn't even know that the Marines flew anything. I didn't even know that there was a such thing as Marine Corps pilots. So he said, if you want to be a Marine Corps officer, you can now sit for this test and will allow you to be able to, if you pass the test, you can be a Marine Corps officer as a pilot. So I sat for the test. 3 hours later, I passed the test. Next thing you know, they're sending me off to officer candidate school in Quantico, Virginia. And then from there, I go to Pensacola, Florida, and I learn how to fly. I learned how to fly little planes. I learned how to fly jets. I learned how to fly heavies. But the biggest thing that I learned and what I loved the most was learning how to fly helicopters. I graduated with my wings in 2006, and with that, I got a master's degree in aeronautical engineering.
Oh, cool.
So I was able to fly the largest helicopter in the United States military fleet, which is called a CH-53 Echo. Its nickname is a Super Stallion. I'm going to give you guys some diameter on this thing. It's a 99-foot-long helicopter from tip to tail. My rotor arc is 79 feet. I can put 55 troops in it. To fly the helicopter, there's a pilot, a co-pilot, a crew chief who monitors to make sure the pilots aren't messing up. I have a gunner on my left who has a 50 cal machine gun. I have a gunner on my right who has a 50 cal machine gun. And I have a gunner in the back on my tail who has a 50 cal machine gun. And everywhere we flew, we also had a crewman or a naval doc, a flight surgeon, what we called them. My job in the Middle East, twice to Iraq, once 50 missions, over 500 hours. For the most part, I was a flying truck. I can lift over 40,000 pounds, which means I can pick up trucks and tanks and water bivouacs and bring these supplies to where they needed to go. In the Middle East, there's things called jobs. Those are my normal jobs. My everyday job. But I'm going to tell you two specific jobs that still stick in my mind. One, as I'm historically marginalized, as I talk about historically marginalized students, women. Us men, we will put you down and reduce you as much as we possibly can. It's in our... And what I mean by that is 3 particular missions. We would fly in, we got the call, that would transpire. And with that, young girls from the age of 6 to 13 were simply walking to class, and the Taliban would throw acid in their faces. Simply trying to go to school. As a pilot, you're not supposed to look back, but you look back and you see their faces melting off. And you're thinking, wow. Simply because we don't want them to have an education. How sad. We would take our helicopters and we'd fly as fast as we can. At the time, we had 3 plastic surgeons in the country. And they would work on these young girls' faces and try to help them and try to restore their faces. And they were Afghani young women. And as Americans, we would try our best. And Brits, we would try our best. And Australians, we would try to restore these people. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Leaving the military after my three tours, I was married to an African petition the Department of Defense, and I say, I've served my time. I have to take care of my child. They fast forward, or they say, guess what, Captain Garneir? You have served your time. You're now allowed to leave the military, but now I'm freaking out. I'm a single dad, and I have no job. So I take my son, we fly back, we move back to San Diego to be closer to my mom and dad, and I have to figure out what job do I want. And the job that I want, that I can figure out, is one that I can be a teacher. Because it's in the same capacity, on the same schedule, where I'm able to be on the same schedule as my son. So I'm going to fast forward. If you guys look at my profile, you're going to look at my social media page, and you're going to see like a kind of a weirdness here. Because you're going to see my wife now, who's about as white as this wall. And you're going to see my 13-year-old son, who's about this tall, and my little white daughter, who's about this tall. And you're going to see our 6-year-old child, who really much looks like you Nepali folks, his skin color. When I moved back to my family, my wife that I have now, and I promise, give me a minute or so I can finish this story, okay? You don't have to worry about the time, I promise I'll get it. When I moved back to San Diego, my wife and I, who I knew in high school, said, hey, she was going through a divorce as well, and we started to get together and get our kids together for about a year. And then after a year, we started to look at each other and say, wow, our kids had a lot of play dates. Maybe you and I should have a couple play dates. Those play dates eventually turned into a marriage. The marriage eventually turned into our 6-year-old child now being born. And we have a family that is amazingly fantastic. Throughout that time, though, when I was teaching, I earned my master's in teaching from the University of Southern California. And I got hired by a school district with 30,000 students, but about 2,000 of them were African American, Black, or Latino, skin color like ours. And I got called over and over again to come and help these particular students. Help them out. Chris, can you do this? Chris, can you do that? And I continued to do that. Eventually, I got called so many times that I was no longer even able to teach. My name started to go around the United States of America, and I found myself traveling around the U.S., helping these vulnerable, historically marginalized groups. From there, you need to join. There, I was able to start to travel the world and do the exact same thing that I did in the United States. So when I'm here, when I tell my young people all the time, is that your skin color, your sex, your sexual identity may not be set up for you, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, what matters is your willpower, your ability to, or your need or desire to want to succeed. And here I am today with a doctorate in global education, who've traveled around the world with a father who held someone up at gunpoint at 16 years old. And I'm here in Nepal leading a college. It's a story that most people can't say because they don't necessarily believe that can happen to them. And I promise you, education is the key. I've sat with senators and congressmen, white men and women. And the reason why I'm able to step into their office with authority is because of the education that I have behind me and what I bring from my experience. So I implore you, no matter how old you get, no matter how much trouble you get into, your education is the most important thing that you possibly can have. That's all I have.